Good evening guys, and welcome to the penultimate vlog of this spooky season. It is wet, it's wintry, it's not a Wednesday, it's a Tuesday, but we're braving it anyhow. I've got the brolly with us because it's sort of sporadically chucking it down, but Adventures of Paul is with me as usual. Say hello Paul, he's already waving in the background. Tonight we find ourselves at Woughton on the Green. We'll make our way down to Woolstone from here. There's a couple of spooky stories to tell. So anyhow guys, let's go and do this. Nothing whatsoever to do with the tonight's vlog on the spooky side, but what a fantastic looking tree. Someone's really made an effort. First piece of significance right there, the ye old swan. And the reason why we're here in this area, because of an old fable, old ghostly stories of someone who is probably notorious from a corridor that stretches all the way from London all the way up to York. That is of course the infamous highwayman known as Dick Turpin. Now he is believed to have frequented this area. We even have Turpin Court right next to where the ye old swan is. But he is supposed to have frequented this area, the church there, found sanctuary there, and right to the side there, something really significant. I shall go across the road briefly without getting run over. That there is the infamous cursed stone. Now the cursed stone is a mountain stone. Now what is a mountain stone? A mountain stone is just like a large rock, because people getting on horseback in them days, you've either got to jump from the ground, but it's far easier just to have your saddle there mounted on the side of the horse. Over the side you go and off you ride. And that is said to be cursed because obviously significance with Dick Turpin, and it's believed that all mentionable unpleasantries will happen if you attempt to move it. So we certainly will not be doing that. But that is a very old pub. But yeah, this whole area, but I dare say every single town between here and York has got some form of Dick Turpin story, some sort of ghost story that goes hand in hand with him. As you have to forgive us as we're trying to avoid getting totally drenched. I do have a brolly up, which do offer a little bit of shelter. Did have two, but Paul was a silly ass, decided to leave his in the car. Right, we find ourselves in the cemetery and grounds of St Mary's Church of Woughton on the Green. Now this is a 13th century church, which it wasn't like this when it was built. It was just a small part of the back. The tower was added in the 15th century, and it was further extended in the 19th century. And we're pretty much, as we normally do, just making our way around the old cemetery, the old graveyard, just for the spooky vibes. And we can turn around and talk about our dear old friend Richard, aka Dick Turpin. I suppose, as I said, there is many fables, many stories, true, told and untold, of this man. Now a highwayman was not a particularly nice person. All the romance associated with someone coming along, your money or your life, and just taking away your worldly goods on horseback, and pretty much making your way off in the night was not all they got up to. They were arsonists, they were burglars, they were poachers, just basically general thugs. Nothing pleasantry about them at all. So you get that myth, that story about who or what they were. If you get past that, you get down to the real nitty gritty. That is weird. Turpin himself lived between 1705 and 1739 when he was hung in the old city of York at a place called Narveshire, is that right? Or Narshire? I think Knowlesborough is like a common denominator for it nowadays. But he was hung up there. He was caught stealing horses and hung from a tree, I believe, rather than a gibbet. And that was the end of him. But as I said, because of its area, its location, the old fable of him and Black Bess and doing the 200-mile journey from London to York overnight, could it happen? Well, I don't know. Is a horse comfortable galloping at that sort of speed? It would probably have had to do in excess of 30-35 mile an hour for a good maybe 6 hours. I don't know. I know people run marathons and that is probably the equivalent, but horses know their own mind, so don't know, make of that what you will. As I said, he is supposed to, he's been spotted allegedly, I'm not going to say for sure, but his ghost is supposed to have been spotted galloping up and down this area on horseback in the wee hours, should we say. Like I said, I don't want to spend too long around here because there are fresh graves and the idea is never to cause upset or offence. It's just to bring to life our stories, as we'll make our way on to our next one, which is rather peculiar. It's kind of a magnificent sight, a very much castle-esque features. Right, the road we're currently walking down is the old Newport Road. This would have gone back in the day sort of Milton Keynes village way up to Newport Pagnell, but it also would have taken on Simpson, Woughton on the Green, various other places and locations. But now with the horizontals and V's across Milton Keynes, it's sort of just your locals, the residents that frequent the area. Apart from that, you do not get a heck of a lot of traffic down here. As we were mentioning earlier about the cursed stone, and I said it was a mountain stone, that there is your modern equivalent. So people would put their horse by the side here, they go up the steps and then jump over the side of the horse there and gallop off. That's pretty much what that rock, the cursed stone, is, but from many centuries ago. And we leave now Woughton on the Green and come to an area called Woolstone. Now, Woolstone wasn't always known as Woolstone. It had an Anglo-Saxon name, that being Wolf Siege. Now, I'm not turning around and saying, well, I did report on it last time, that it could have had one of these cryptid creature pandemics in the area for it to have had that name. I've looked into it, it's on Wikipedia. I can't find any real rhyme or reason behind it, but it just seems peculiar having the name Wolf Siege, and the old area itself was a walled village, so they wanted to certainly keep something out. The area we are now going to is an old chapel known as Woolstone Chapel. It's been sort of not derelict because they've used it as a storage facility, a music hall over the years since it was made redundant back in the 1970s. But it sits here quite proud, a small little cemetery with a plethora of graves around the outside of it. And this area is supposed to be frequented by a ghostly monk figure. More or less turns up when it's foggy, so we ain't gonna have that pleasure tonight. And the reason why it gets foggy, because the area to the field to the right behind the chapel is an old medieval fish farm. Basically they would fish the rivers, lakes and canals in this area and keep the live fish in a pond until it was time to consume them. And I don't know the ins and outs, whether the monk died by drowning, etc., but on a foggy night he's supposed to hover across the field. But we'll show you exactly where very soon. That there on yonder field, love the old sayings, is our next destination. That is the abandoned Woolstone Chapel. Not a lot of it, but it's pretty eerie. As you can see, the rain tipping it down almost horizontal. The old rectory there, that's more present day. The area we're going to sort of goes back to the Doomsday Anglo-Saxon sort of era, so pretty much not a lot remains. Even the chapel itself postdates that, and of course the small little cemetery graveyard around its perimeter, which I think there's probably somewhere in the region of maybe 20-30 graves. The old wrought iron gate for the added appeal of spookiness as we enter the area. So the graves are very old, especially over the back there. If I point the torch and focus it in, that little thicket area there, there's graves all in amongst that, left unkempt. Some of these go back, I think the oldest is maybe 250 up to 300 years old. A lot of them seen better times, and I must stress the fact that this isn't vandalism, this is just nature taking its toll. They do succumb to being at an angle. I mean, look at that, you can hardly make that out at all. The names of those lost. When I was back here, I believe it was February time, and I walked around the perimeter of the chapel, I found a hammer of all things just lying in the undergrowth just around the corner around there. And I thought, hello, someone's been up to silly business, maybe either trying to do break and entry or a bit of grave robbing, or perhaps even a murder was committed, who knows. We're running parallel now with where the fish ponds are, or were. They were just in that field area there. There is a plaque that we can walk to if it's not flooded, but that plain area there where I'm putting the torch out, all this was fish ponds. You'll see if I can get to show you the actual description. Let's see if I can actually get around here. Very wet underfoot. I did make it last time, but it doesn't look like possible this time. But I could, during the winter months around March time, someone obviously trimmed it back in between times, make my way through there. So I'll make my way round by walking around the front. My feet are already sopping wet, but we're out doing it, guys, and that is the main thing. If we can put on a show, we certainly will. I don't think there's any gargoyles here. No. As I said, it's been vacant for decades. They used to have it held musical pieces, local band stuff, etc. Practices there. Like a storage hub facility. Pretty much nothing else since. Certainly isn't used for its meaning of a church. That's where the hammer was last time, in amongst that lot. Can't be asked to go in there and have a look, to be honest with you. It was just something weird and quirky that was just left lying around. And as I said, these graves here, just look at the condition of them. They have certainly seen better days. And it's not just these. They go right back in amongst the thicket area, of which we will not bother cutting ourselves to pieces to go in there. But kind of eerie, creepy, but cool nonetheless. If of course you're into that sort of thing. The old medieval fish ponds are located on Ouse Valley Park, adjacent from the Woolstone Chapel where you've just seen us walk around. This is actually quite handy because where it has rained and the water has overspilled from the river that's burst its banks, you can see how the fish ponds, the fish pools would have formed, because there may have been up to 20-30 of them in this area, all holding specific breeds of fish, all to be consumed as food. Our river in question, well, as you can quite clearly see with all the rain we've had, it's burst its banks because the tree line here would be on dry ground. Sort of where the torch is sort of facing there is where the river really would be, but it's come all the way out here to the edge, taking in the trees, everything. Just hoping not all the way around. You see it's near enough at the path level. Another couple of feet and we could find ourselves in a little bit of trouble, and it's quite fast flowing as well. But anyway, I digress. We're making our way along the side of where these fish pools would have sat. It said medieval terminology for fish farming. You still get them nowadays. People have the likes of salmon farms, etc. This was basically your same principle, but in a medieval time. So you got tench, perch, roach, pike, trout. I don't believe had any sort of value as a food substance back in the day, but it is that kind of thing. There's a little plinth we're coming to over here which will depict more of what we're talking about. Here we go. The Great Woolstone Fish Ponds. That's what it would have looked like. You can see there what the old chapel would have looked like, but of course it wasn't a chapel then. Actually, I'm looking at the wrong bit. The chapel is still there. I'm just looking at that bit. That would have been probably a fish farmer's cottage. The chapel is still there. That's where you've seen us walk around. And I said that's medieval times. So it just shows you how old it was. These houses to the left, they have long gone, rotten away. And as you can see the layout there, and as I've mentioned to you before with it flooding, if I now pan over to the side here, that is some serious flooding. I would turn around and say that's somewhere in a region of 4.5, 5 feet deep, because they're just burrows. I don't know whether they put some sort of, I don't know, mud wall bank in the medieval times with clay elements to it, so it saturates and the water sits there. But that is deep. There's one just to the side of us here as well. It just shows you this whole area was them. Now our monk in question, as I said, on a foggy night, and as I said, fog usually rises from water, would come across this field, just hover. Don't know the reason. Did he possibly drown? Could he just have died of old age and lost his way and is trying to make his way to somewhere, and that's why you see him hovering across the field? But that is our second ghost of this evening. People have turned around and said that he frequents this field area here, and that is accompanied with our story of Dick Turpin. Our stories for this evening for you. I hope you've enjoyed as the rain continues to come down. Anyway guys, from a very soaked Rob and Adventures of Paul, that is going to do it for this evening. I hope you've enjoyed our little journey this evening, taking in the story of Dick Turpin. As I said, throughout the country, anywhere from London up to York, you're going to get these stories because it's the area you're supposed to frequent. There's another one that comes from Aspey Guys, which is just to the east of where we are in Milton Keynes. He was supposed to have found a couple of skeletons in basically a lodgings, and used them skeletons to keep him safe, with the excuse of, well, I know where these skeletons are, the old skeletons in the closet sort of thing. You keep my whereabouts quiet, I won't grass you up, basically. And he frequented that area for probably a matter of up to a month, just to keep away from the law. But as I said, you make of it what you will. The stories go hand in hand. Why would they actually have a Dick Turpin court down there? The Ye Old Swan's probably got a plethora of stories, and it's all about the history. A lot of this stuff I've looked up. The actual bit about Woolstone being called Wolf Siege, I found that on Wikipedia. Some of these other stories, you just Google it, you look into the information, the history, go back to the Doomsday Book, etc., and you start finding these rather crazy stories, and it's down to myself and Paul to bring them to life to you. And that's what we try and do here, whether it is chucking it down like it is at the moment, or it's nice and dry in the summer. So anyway guys, certainly check out Paul, his channel Adventures of Paul. Thank you to him for joining us again, because I would not be out here if I made one false move. I'd be probably floating headfirst down the river. And with that guys, enjoy the rest of your week. The weekend coming up, I think I might do Land of Light, which is like a lantern festival, so big it's advertised on the London Underground and in Birmingham, etc. So that'll be a nighttime vlog, because obviously they need to light up their lanterns. From that we'll probably do our last one of the paranormal spooky season. Might be around the city centre area, because I do have one story from there, from my old dirt bike days. They found an old German bomb around there, and his ghost is supposed to frequent the area. We can walk around really comfortable around the perimeter of the city centre, get them Christmassy vibes before we take a little break. But this will not truly end. We were talking on our way here and turning around and saying we might have a mini break and bring you just us two going around and exploring some bits and pieces while we regenerate some other stories and look into other locations, etc., and then start season 2. That is the plan. Thank you for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. See you in the movies. Bye for now.